LinkedIn presents.
This is the Forbes Books Podcast, conversations with remarkable folks who are impacting the world of business and beyond. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and my guest this week is a serial entrepreneur, social media influencer, and a champion of small businesses. Codie Sanchez is the founder and CEO of Contrarian Thinking, a platform that reaches millions of followers across socials and teaches them how to challenge the status quo, find hidden opportunities, and achieve financial freedom. She also runs Contrarian Capital, a company that owns and operates small businesses that generate $50 million in yearly revenue, and an investment fund that supports the backbone of Main Street businesses. Codie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to start with financial literacy, Codie, because, I know money's your bag, but I want to talk about the root of the problem for many Americans, and it's financial literacy. And I want to share a story with you. A few years ago, I was working on a radio show in New York City, and my 22-year-old brand new producer reporter runs into the studio, head full of steam. He's angry. He goes, "I can't believe what the business department just did to me." We're like, "Whoa, what did they do?" "They signed me up for this thing called a 401k, and they're taking money out of my check, and I want my money now. What is this? Why did they do this without my permission?" And then we had to sit him down and explain to him the importance of a 401k, retirement funds, and all that jazz. But he was like 22, 23 years old. He's not a baby. So my question is about this financial literacy. Why is it so bad in this country?
The big question. I think there's many reasons, but one of the reasons why financial literacy is bad, in my opinion, is because it's boring. I think we could say that financial literacy is bad because the man doesn't want us to know, and Wall Street doesn't want us to know, and schools don't teach it properly, all of which is true. But you very quickly will realize the second you start talking on the internet, if you post a video and the title of the video is how to make $100,000 inside of 30, 60, or 90 days, it's going to get a lot of clicks. And if you post the same video that says how to read a balance sheet or how to read a profit and loss statement, which is the key to making $100,000, you're going to get crickets. It's just going to be you and maybe your mom listening, but probably not. And so I think that's the big reason. And one of our missions at Contrarian Thinking is to try to make making money interesting, because I think you can only save your way to zero. And most humans just have too much going on in their lives to shove more information that sounds like a bad accounting class into their brains. And so I think it comes down to the fact that we don't want to know about financial literacy. We want to get rich.
And so what do you say to the person, say to my former producer who doesn't understand the impact? Like, when do you start talking to people like that? If you were a parent and you had like kids, when do you start talking about retirement and stuff? Because like you said, to make it cool is hard, because for years it's always been stodgy old men smoking cigars, talking about finances and stocks and bonds and stuff like that. But how early is too early to start talking about this stuff?
I'm a big believer in show, don't tell. What do you remember more? The mathematics equations that they put up on the, back in my day, chalkboard when you were in school? Or do you remember your first lemonade stand and figuring out, okay, well, I got to buy this lemonade over here for $1.50 at the store, and then I can sell each lemonade cup for 25 cents. So if I sell 100 lemonade cups, I've already recouped this X10 and I've made a profit. So if I was a parent, which I'm not yet, but if I was, I would be showing my kids money, because once you learn how to make it and you can make it real for somebody, you can make it last. But telling somebody, nobody likes a lecture. And so I think the biggest thing starts with, hey, Junior, we opened up an account for you. Look at it right here. You can track it every single day. Give me your phone, which you're totally addicted to anyway. See this app. In here, I'm going to put in $50 and watch what happens when the market goes up and down. And then, because kids like games, they'll look and see, oh my God, Dad, there's only $25 you've stolen from me. And you're going to explain, no, actually, what that is that's called market movement or volatility. let's break down what that actually looks like live. And that is probably the biggest reason why I think video is so important and at Contrarian Thinking we do all this video content, because your ability to remember facts when you have been shown them and then when you have done them increases exponentially, which is probably why, 83% of ad dollars are going to some version of video right now.
That's awesome. Well, let's talk about your financial journey from, I guess, being an old school journalist to then becoming this money guru. As a kid, now let's go back to you being a kid. Could you have fathomed this is where you'd be some sort of YouTube influencer with millions of followers talking about money? It doesn't seem like a thing most kids would think about, but I'm curious, like what was your childhood like that made you pivot from being a old school journalist to being this contrarian?
When I was a kid, I always knew I wanted to be a business owner. I had my first bookstore where I stole my parents' books and proceeded to sell them on the side of the street for probably a hefty discount. I think I was like 12 or something like that. So I started off pretty early with this idea of I want to learn how to make money because money seems to give me things and I can have more freedom if I have more money. And so I sort of figured that early on. And I started with this bookstore. I didn't know that I liked communicating and teaching people things. What I did know is when I was a journalist, I felt like telling people about events happening in the world wasn't changing things like I wanted it to change things. It was entertainment, basically. And instead of entertaining people, I wanted to help them change their lives, actually. And so my joke on stage now is that, I'm not a dancing bear. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to help you make some fucking money. And if you want to be entertained and you want to see the dancing bear, go back to TikTok. And so I suppose originally I thought the best way to do that was by building finance companies, employing as many people as I could in those finance companies and creating better financial products. But I realized quickly that most people can't start there. They have to start with the fact that they have no financial acumen or financial understanding. And maybe even before that they think that money's bad, that they think that they don't deserve money. And you have to get into this touchy feely stuff that as a longtime, investment professional and former reformed Wall Streeter makes me sort of die on the inside, except that I realize that most people, when they think about money, they don't throw their arms up in the air with like this big abundance mindset. They're like, oh, they get tiny and they think about money and it's scary. And so we sort of start by demystifying the thing and then take them all the way to the stuff that I find the most interesting, which is how do you actually do it? Tell me how you did it. But I never would have guessed that. I think if you had asked me, I would have said that I would have owned a small business, which maybe has come back full circle in some ways.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's funny too, because I saw this shift. I started in traditional media too. I worked at a radio station in New York for 20 years. And when I first started, it was like, I want to be on radio. I want to be on television. And then slowly but surely, when you'd see younger people come up, they like TV and radio was not even a thing. They'd be like, I want to be a YouTuber. When did YouTube become your go-to? Because I know you've got like an obscene amount. You've got like 500,000 followers on YouTube. Was that the one that made you really pop? Because I know you're pretty much on all social media platforms, but where did YouTube come across in this journey of yours from, old school journalist to becoming this sort of money influencer?
YouTube only started a year ago. So this was one of our later platforms that we're still tweaking and having a lot of fun with figuring out the right formats for us. The first platform for me was probably Instagram, which is just natively what I was more familiar with. So we really started off on Instagram sharing ideas about business building at a very basic level. So, sort of quotes and quick little videos that I would snap. And then we grew to Twitter. But those were the first two platforms. And mostly because I think on Instagram, you can have the best connection with your audience. So Instagram really allows you to actually build a community, whereas TikTok doesn't. TikTok rewards virality. Twitter sort of rewards outrage in a lot of ways or controversy. And then YouTube, I think, really rewards almost like a TV series. They reward you finding the right frameworks or formats and doing them consistently. Instagram felt to me like the one that had the most freedom within it. So that's where we started.
It's amazing too, because I think the one thing influencers get wrong all the time, and I'm sure you get this all the time because you have such a big community that follows you, is that they get frustrated because they didn't get to 1 million followers in a month, or it's all about like, let's just keep pumping out videos until one catches. And it's funny because I interviewed Danielle Brown, who runs Healthy Girl Kitchen, huge TikTok and Instagram channel. And she said it took her 8 years to get 1 million followers. Now she's up at over $8 million. She has a book deal. I'm sure she's going to be exploding even further. But it's that idea of mindset, whether it's not just putting stuff out there for the sake of it, but the quality of it and then letting the people come. Did you ever get caught up in the, oh God, why is this video getting X number of hits? And you joked earlier about like this one gets crickets and this one gets, did you worry too much about that? Or were you just like so focused on quality that the counts wasn't an issue initially?
Quality can't be quantified. It's completely based on your personal taste. And yet we all sort of know the moment we see something that is quality, the design of an Hermes chair and how beautifully specific it is, a well architected home. And I think content is the same way. You just have to believe your taste. My team will ask me when I don't like something that we put together, well, who decides? Like what's a good video? What's not a good video? And I typically say something annoying like, the second that you guys get millions more views than I do, you can tell me that the video is good or bad. But until then, the barometer is purely that the numbers don't lie. And we humans, we see them in aggregate to be able to decide what is good versus bad content when the platform allows us to. And so I didn't get caught up too much in that. I think the secret to not caring what other people think is to believe in what you are doing strongly. The second that you do something that is questionable to your ethics or morals, or what you think your highest caliber of execution is the second you regret those videos. I remember way back in the day, I did one dancing TikTok video ever, and I looked at it and was like, oh my God, I want to die. This is so horrendous because it's me trend jacking on somebody else. And I think imitation is actually not a great form of flattery. Imitation is a surefire way to have regrets about what you put out on the internet. So if you are worrying about a video not getting views and that's stressing you out and you're not doing it in a way that's filled with curiosity, it's probably because you don't really believe in the stuff that you're putting out there. Because if you believe in the stuff you're putting out there, then it's just you need to get better. You just need the 10,000 reps. And at this point, you don't have them.
Yeah, I had a meeting with somebody today who's going to be a new client, and he goes, I've been doing podcasts before, but I'm not able to build an audience. And I said, how many podcasts you did? Oh, we did, a couple, did 20, 30 podcasts. I'm like, okay, well, you know how you grow an audience? Do 1,000 podcasts. Like create great content over time. You will build a community, whether it's a community of a few thousand, a few 100,000 or millions. It only happens if you decide to invest time, get your 10,000 hours in. I always use the perfect example is Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan didn't sign a $100 million deal because he just started doing podcasts. He signed that deal because he did like 10,000 podcasts to get that deal. So I think that's what people just can't wrap their brain around. And as you know, Codie, we're in this world of like, get rich quick. I'm sure the videos you're talking about, the idea of like famous overnight. And it's a frustration point for a lot of people. But hearing your story, hearing folks like Danielle Brown, I think people will learn that, listen, if this is something that you want to be a big part of your life, then you've got to invest time in your life for it. And that's one part of it, your media side. But let's talk about the investment side, because I've read somewhere where you invested in dozens of boring businesses. First, talking to entrepreneurs, it's pretty fascinating, but what do you consider a boring business?
We call it that as a bit of a tongue in cheek, but a boring business to me is a business that you use every single day, you pay for, and yet you don't think about. And so those might be things like your house cleaning business that you pay for each week, or the landscapers that come to your house, or the roofers, or the construction companies, or the road striping companies where they stripe the little lines across the pavement. All of these everyday boring businesses are companies that largely, they don't have a moat. They don't have some specific fancy innovation happening in them. They operate on something called the Lindy effect, which is basically that they've been in existence for a long time, so they have a higher likelihood of continuing to be in existence. And these small businesses or mom and pop businesses are largely ignored by, say, our generation because we want to do the shiny internet thing, or we want to do the startup that changes the world in XYZ way. And we don't realize that maybe we could change the world by first changing our community. and doing a small community business. And instead of starting with innovation, we start with execution and add innovation on top of it. And I just prefer that because I like profits day one that I do a deal. I don't want to hope and pray that my startup is going to one day cover my mortgage. I'd much rather take over a business that's been in existence for a long time and then layer innovation and technology on top of it.
And I know one of the businesses you made a YouTube video for was the laundromat that you make like $60,000 a year from a laundromat. First of all, why a laundromat, and how the hell do you make $60,000 running a laundromat?
Well, laundromat, 67,000 was the profit when we first bought that business. We don't own it anymore. But I basically started with laundromats because they're relatively absentee. You don't have to be there all day. They're not that expensive to buy on a, scale of businesses that you could buy. And they're very simple to run. So I call them the gateway drug to business buying. And these sort of like absentee, smaller businesses that aren't going to probably bankrupt you and that you can understand how to run as a brand new business owner, I think help people then get to the next level, which, you might start out with one laundromat, or you might start out with one car wash, or you might start out with one cleaning company. And then you scale up and you realize, this was good to get started, but now I actually want to sell this business and I want to start a property management company, which is more complex and has more moving parts and humans within it. And so that's why I started with that business. But laundromats on average make anywhere from 100,000 to, it'd be hard to make multiple millions with laundromat. We have a couple that have, but 100,000 to $1 million in revenue a year. And you take somewhere between a 10 to 30% profit margin on that. And that's how laundromats operate.
Wow. That's impressive. And I know that video got like 1 million views. And I'm not sure if you're one of these folks that like scrolls through the comments or something, but have you, or even maybe gotten feedback, a DM or something where people said like, Codie, I watched your video and I bought a laundromat. Have you gotten any feedback like that?
Yeah, it usually goes two ways. I think humans are incredibly polar. It goes, wow, I followed this exactly. And now I've done this exact thing. This is amazing. Thank you. Or, oh my God, this would never work. And there's no way this happened. And so you just see the polarity in everything on the internet, which I understand. It's healthy to question stuff given how many people post wild things on the internet, but it's been really cool because we actually started documenting how many humans have bought businesses because of the stuff that we share. And inside of just our communities, which is called Unconventional Acquisitions, we've had over $200 million in revenue bought in the last 2 years, tens of millions of dollars in profit. I can't remember the exact number, but somewhere between 60 and 90 million. And those are just the deals where they give us the revenue and profit number because we've had over 200 deals bought. But a lot of those, they won't give us, all the specifics, which is totally understandable. So I think it's cool to see the impact you can have by sharing the thing that you know. I mean, who would have thought that me sharing how to buy laundromats, car washes, and the stuff I do in private equity would at all be interesting to anybody? I certainly had no idea once I started talking about it.
That's awesome. And, obviously you work a lot with small businesses and these boring businesses that you work with. And one thing that I've experienced over the last couple of years, so I built a home in Charleston, South Carolina last year. And my whole life, I lived in New York City, New Jersey area, rented for most of it, and never had a lot of interaction with small businesses. Now that I'm a homeowner, which is a real pain in the ass, Codie, I probably don't need to tell you that. But the idea of working with small businesses, I was like, oh, cool, I could help these small businesses. And then I realized, boy, the reason a lot of small businesses fail is because they suck at small business. Like they don't have any soft skills. They don't return calls. They're rude to you. Is it that they're so busy that they don't think about these interactions with folks, and they just don't know how to massage a client or something like that, where people have a little more experience doing that? Where did that go wrong?
One of my mentors in business, the first time I launched a business, he said to me, I already know what your biggest problem is going to be. And what your biggest joy will be in running a business. And I was like, great, tell me. And he's like, your biggest problem will be your people, and your biggest joy will be your people. And I think he's incredibly right. So when you run a business, any business, including a small business, you're probably not often talking to the owner. You're talking to a lot of people who these days, I think, have given themselves the worst type of kiss of death, which is working in the job they don't like, doing things they don't want to do, in a place they don't want to do it, for people they don't want to do it for. And I think that's a lot of what you feel, is that we have people who think that they have to stay in a job that they hate to continue getting paid, instead of going and spending both your time and money building a building or being the architect of your life with a company that you actually really enjoy. So the biggest issue in small business, in my mind, is that a lot of times they keep people in their businesses that they shouldn't, because they feel like labor's tight. They don't spend a lot of time attracting great people. And then if you ever run a business, running a business is sort of like, the saying goes, it's building an airplane while in mid-flight, falling at extremely fast rates. And so if you run a small business, you realize constantly, if you're not using technology, if you don't have great people, if you're not innovating, it's miserable. So a lot of these small businesses are just glorified jobs with a couple of people vendor contracting around them. They're not real businesses. And I think our generation, both yours, mine, the generation upcoming, have an opportunity to turn these jobs into businesses, build real culture inside of them, attract great talent, and make the businesses, I think, ready for the 21st century.
And what businesses are you excited about? What kind of investment opportunities are you seeing as the next, either, I don't want to say like hot item or trend or something, but something that has some legs? Like, what are you kind of excited about?
Anywhere that we're seeing the gray wave. So anywhere that we are seeing baby boomers who own most of the small businesses in this country start to retire in mass, I find are interesting, because you basically find the supply and demand curve is leaning in your favor. We're on a teeter-totter. There's a ton of supply happening and there's not very much demand. And so you get to sit at the bottom of the teeter-totter and have all the demand stream right to you, which basically means that you get to buy things cheaply if you're looking to invest in a small business. And it also means you get to have the pick of the litter, because you have everything streaming for you. As opposed to, let's say, if you wanted to invest in an AI company, look at those valuations. Now it's the opposite. The AI companies sit at the bottom of the teeter-totter and they basically see all the investors come to them with the best terms possible, right? And so in this day and age, I want to go where the masses are not. The best investors know the only way to make money is to do two things: to have a contrarian opinion and then to be right about it. And that is really hard to do continuously. And the way that you do it is you follow the numbers, not the narrative. And the numbers today are telling me that small businesses in mass with low valuations are where the opportunity is. And while everybody is talking about AI and what the future will look like, there will be some winners, but they will be few and the many will lose.
I love that gray wave. It's like, for folks not familiar, what in essence is the gray wave?
So in the US right now, we have the fastest retiring segment of baby boomers that has ever happened before. There are 10,000-ish baby boomers retiring a day. On average, those baby boomers, 1 out of 4 of them owns a small business. So we're seeing this retirement happen at an incredibly fast pace. And those baby boomers have nowhere for their businesses to go. To your point, their kids want to be on YouTube or they want to work at AI companies. They don't want to run a plumbing company. They don't want to run a construction company. And so that means that there's an opportunity for other people to come in. And that's what I call the gray wave.
I love that. That's awesome. I'm going to steal that, Codie. And it's funny too that you mentioned that, because it's so, and again, I guess this goes to your contrarian thinking. It's so antithetical to what we're used to. It's like, it's 18 to 24, 25, 54. That's our key demographic. Who cares about old people? And you're seeing it. You're not the first person to say this to me, but this huge market that's available for seniors that have a shit ton of money to spend or to sell. I mean, when do you think everyone else is going to kind of catch up to your point of view on this, Codie?
The beautiful part about buying businesses is actually that it's not super easy. It is simple, but it is not Robinhood clicking a button that allows you to buy a stock and get an immediate endorphin release and feel like you have actually done something when in fact you have not. Buying a small business takes you first learning how to do it. Second, earning or raising capital to do the deal. Third, taking some risk and actually buying the business or putting other investors' money into buying the business or using your time to buy the business. And then fourth, once you get the business, you don't just get to like watch it rise and fall on Robinhood. You or somebody else has to operate it. And so the beautiful part about this time and this asset class is that it is not hyper commoditized and you can't just click a few buttons and do it. And that will mean that most people, because most people are lazy and they have short-term focus instead of long-term focus, they won't jump on this opportunity, which is perfectly fine for the few of us who will, because this will be, I think, a generational wealth creation event. In fact, it already is in many places. And it will be widely dispersed because you can't just go pick up 400 of these small businesses by making a few clicks on the internet or sending a few emails to 400 business owners. It takes hand-to-hand combat, and that is the opportunity.
I love it. And that is on brand for your brand, being the Contrarian. Why? Why being Contrarian? Why is that important to you? Not only for your essence, but like as part of your brand.
When I first identified it as a Contrarian was when I read Christopher Hitchens' Letters to Young Contrarians. And tiny little book, highly recommend it. But basically, his thesis is that a contrarian does not just go against the tide continuously. A contrarian questions things and has the ability to think about how to think, not what to think. And in this day and age where more and more humans are wanting to be told steps 1 to 7 will get you a formula to success made in 30, 60, or 90 days, guaranteed, I think we're being sold a bag of lies. I think the truth is that if you actually want success, you have to work on your mind to be able to question just about anything and then layer your own context, experience, and perspective on it. And that is the only way you get success. If you follow everybody else's footsteps, they've already been trodden. And so there's no flowers growing there anymore. They've been wiped out. And that, I believe, is the difference in most humans who accept what people say at face value, even if they don't realize it, and those that push back, not just to be belligerent or contrarian, but because they want to understand the truth. And it's actually incredibly difficult. And if you want to play a game and do this, next time somebody comes on your podcast, start going down a rabbit hole with them on why. Gray wave, what is that? Why do you know? How do you know? What makes you think that this matters? How do you define that word? And it makes people really uncomfortable because most ideas go untested in our world. And the idea of a contrarian is you are a scientist with ideas.
So that's why you weren't thrown off when I brought it back to you. You were ready for me there. I see. Very good.
Always. Well, and I want to find people who find the lies in what I say too. Anytime I speak something out into the world, I mean, we're talking to our 4 million followers across multiple platforms, so you better believe I'm going to get some pushback somewhere. Yeah. And if it's valid, I want to know. And because I'm in a pursuit for the truth too. And I want to figure out, where am I wrong? And where does that not matter anymore? Oh, and that's not the right thing I should be focusing on. And any human who says that they have the gospel, and let me share it with you, my sweet accolade who can listen to me on high, I immediately don't trust. And I don't think you should either.
Now, lastly, Codie, you are changing people's lives every day. You're playing the long game. What do you want the lasting legacy of contrarian thinking and Codie Sanchez to be?
I want my legacy to be a series of open signs all around our country that would have been closed otherwise. I want our legacy to be small businesses all around this country getting money instead of it funneling only to the big and the few. I want our legacy to be millions of small business owners who have skin in the game and are succeeding in life by having the one thing that nobody can take away from you when you leave the job or when they fire you, and that is ownership by contract. And so if I see a series of open signs across the country because of the things that we have talked about and businesses not disappearing because their owners have retired, I'll know that we were successful.
That's awesome. And for folks being introduced to contrarian thinking, where's the best way to start? Where should they Google you? What should they look? How could they reach out to you?
I think you're crazy if you don't do contrarianthinking.co, which is our newsletter. It's free. It comes out once a month. And then if you like that one, there's one specifically on buying businesses. That one's at unconventionalacquisitions.com. I apparently like Val's. in the things that I name. So either one of those things. And then I'm Codie Sanchez on all the socials. But I really think if you want to truly learn, there's nothing better than having the writing in front of your face and being able to pick it apart, as opposed to a video will get your attention, but you'll have to go back and listen to it again and whatever. Instead, test it in writing, I think.
Awesome. Codie, it's been a great chat. Thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And that'll do it for another episode of the Forbes Books Podcast. Don't forget to hit subscribe. That way you'll get new episodes as soon as they're available. And if you have a spare moment, I would greatly appreciate it if you could leave a review, which would help other exceptional entrepreneurs like you discover the show. You can always connect with me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Joe Pardavila. And please don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.